Hello there, welcome to another installment of Blender and Chill. So this is actually something that I've done on this channel before. We're gonna take a look at Dream Textures. It has a new version. Let's see here. It has a new version, and Dream Textures allows us to tap into Stable Diffusion right within Blender. So this is going to be interesting because I've found a I've found a Stable Diffusion model that's actually really interesting. It's called, let's see, what's it called? Realistic Vision. And it really yields interesting results because they're very photoreal or very arc-viz. So it really allows for close to photoreal or close to the type of graphics that you want to get out of a 3D render, right? It basically like fills in the gaps, like more so than I've seen before. So we're gonna explore that a little bit. Just as always, we're going to install the plugin. So we go over wherever our plugins are saved. And we want to find our Dream Textures for your appropriate machine. I hadn't had it. I mean, well, this is the latest version, so I'm having to upgrade. I think like the latest version just has some more tweaks or a bit more settings that allows you to have more control over some of the prompting that you're doing, especially when rendering, not just projection, and as well as some more upscaling options. So I'm going to give that a second to load in. In the meantime, I'm going to take a look at some of the documentation around realistic vision. So you can always look up your looks like my installment of Dream Textures is just freezing my computer. I can't quite show that yet. We'll give that a moment. But we can always check in on those models on Hugging Face, and specifically for realistic vision, we can actually check out some recommended settings that are put on there for using that specific model for Stable Diffusion. I'd say they don't yield the best results, like the recommended options. You kind of have to use that as your starting point and then tweak a bit from there. So let's see, looks like I'm now able to, at least while that continues to install, I can show you over here. So this is not it. We can look over here in the Hugging Face website, look for Realistic Vision 2.0. So if we check that out, it tells us a little bit, you know, this is like what the creator or what the person posting this model recommends. So this is a template for getting pretty good generation results. I do find that like the raw photo, including that into the prompt, yields pretty good results. 8K UHD, you know, that's typically something that you always put in with these high quality or high detail renderings. Again, high quality, soft lighting, and it's interesting that you can kind of call for specific camera settings, or at least like, you know, sort of DSLR settings. Let's see. The negative prompt, that's always good. I've found that with negative prompts, you can always kind of, if you're leaning more realistic, you can actually, as we're seeing here, where we can lean more realistic and put in some words in the negative prompt, such as CGI, 3D, render, cartoon, that sort of thing, to avoid getting anything that looks non-photoreal. And finally, we have these little settings down here. Yeah, you're able to see everything right above me. So those are actually, we'll get into that into more detail once we actually have this running in Blender. So we'll move back over. Let's see, so we have this here now. We can check that box to activate the plugin. It'll recommend, you know, we download at least one model. So it might not be picking up the fact that I've installed some models before already. So we're just gonna go ahead and find over here, or maybe I might have deleted them just updating the plugin. So we could always search right here. Oh, there we go. It found the ones I had installed. So we had Spider-Verse, comic diffusion, stable diffusion, you know, many different versions of stable diffusion for in-painting, the depth model and such. But we'll search, we can actually search for Hugging Face right within the plugin now. So we can find realistic vision and do a search for that. And the one that we want is this one, but not version 1.4 because there is a version 2.0. So we'll search that as one word perhaps. Or just realistic. Let's see. Maybe I search for vision. That's not right. We should be able to get realistic vision 2.0. If we go back into Hugging Face. How am I screwing up here? Well, let's search for the user SG1612. It was right there. SG16122. Very strange. I mean, fine for us to use this version of it here, but I really wanted to use version 2.0. But this one will give us some good results too. So we can hit download right there and give that just a second. Very strange. So I did that earlier today, or I installed this on another computer earlier today, and I had it show up when I searched through here. So I'm not exactly sure. Ah, I see. I think I'm still installing or still updating my plugin. So what I've actually installed might have been version 0.1, which right now we're at version 0.2. Not sure if that has something to do with why I didn't quite get that model just yet. But we can start building out a scene separately while this is installing. So we can have this instance of Blender, install the plugin, and in the meantime we can start opening up another file to then transfer in. So we'll look for my template folders to bring up a template scene. So I have some of these scenes saved here from a packet, and I think this one might have had some modifications already. Let's see. Mini loft. Yeah, we can go with this scene. Oh. Open. All right. So if we check out our main view, we've got this box right here. We go through to the camera and we're looking over into this corner. If we look at our rendered view real quick, this is what we have to work with. So we can sort of select the subject and rotate around it a little bit in order to then apply our AI filter and actually animate through this with the AI. So we will bring in an object. Maybe let's do something out of Blender kit. We can do some search for some models. We can search for a chair. This is pretty funky. I'd love to use that. We'll filter out only the free items as I'm not currently subscribed. That's pretty funky. I sort of like the idea of, let's say if we could do some kind of futuristic style with this chair here. So by Aiden Zoe. Thanks, Aiden. Great looking chair. We're going to drop this into our scene. Give that a moment to load. I'm going to check in on our Stable Diffusion model. That's still downloading. I'm going to pause this update so I can go a little bit quicker. Okay. Let's see what happened here. Where did our chair go? Ah, stuck to the wall for some reason. We'll rotate that here into place. Cool. Solid view. Bring this down. Right there, close to the camera. We can kind of give it like a 45-degree or a bit of a rotation there towards the window. And let's see what we got. Neat. I don't like the red though. It's kind of screaming at me. So let's kind of tweak that color just a bit more. Yeah, a bit more orange. And maybe not so bright. A bit darker in color. Like a brownish, dark orange. Nice. We'll do that. A bit of adjustment for all of these. Chair inner. Much better. I like where I landed there with that. A bit more red. Okay. Cool. So they're kind of a little bit of different tones, so it doesn't just look exactly the same, because it wouldn't quite be exactly the same. I think it just kind of looks neat like that. I don't like this thing we have in the background. I think it's a vent hood, but in any case, I'm gonna hide it from our render. And instead what I'll do is I'll put a piece of artwork on the wall. So we'll look for that in Blender Kit as well. So I search for art, and we get a gate, we get a globe, we got some, yeah, we got anything but a painting. You have to specify that I'd like a painting, but none of this is art. I mean, that could, I guess the unicorn worker basket is art. Oh, that's kind of fitting. I like that. I do think it's gonna yield some inconsistencies within the rendering, so I'm going to abstain from editing anything else besides just a piece of art right now. So maybe search specifically for a painting. There we go. I'd use the red one, but I don't want to add another red piece. Sure, let's go with this, by Eduardo Baroni. And once again, I think that's loading into my sidewall. Let's see here. Painting with frame, yep. So select hierarchy. Let's move that into our scene, into our room. There we are. And I have a suspicion it's backwards. Let's see. Nope, we're right there. Okay. Maybe, yeah, just have it be something like that. Yeah. Okay. So now we have this set up. We want to switch over to 512 by 512 resolution. Now that we have this real simple setup. That's just what we need to get the stable diffusion working properly, is using that square perspective, or square proportion rather. And we'll switch over into our other instance to see here. We're still downloading that model, so this is very strange. 1.4 seems to be even bigger than version 2.0, but it's picking up. It'll almost be done. There's a couple more things we need to do to the scene in order to get it prepped for the AI, so that is our camera motion. So I'll switch over to solid mode, and we'll actually target the painting. So I'm going to select the camera, and very important, do a save as, and we'll save this into a new project folder. Create right here. We're at 23. 0510. Okay, We got our camera selected. I'm gonna go over into object constraints and we can turn on track to, so I can track to the painting by just hitting the eyedropper there. And the camera tilts, and it tilts quite a bit. So what I'm gonna do is actually hit Shift A to introduce an empty, and it could just be a plain axis empty, so we kind of just get this crosshair looking thing, and move it above the chair. And that is now going to be our new tracking object. So we'll get rid of the painting and then just click over the empty. There we go. So now if I move the empty around, right, our camera's always tracking to it. So we'll leave it where it was. We are gonna take our camera and we're gonna actually, let's see, we need to move it into the room a little bit because we're right at the edge. So we'll bring this over this way. Cool. Maybe, yeah. And then we want to open up our timeline. So I'm going to bring up a new view here, or a new window, by just clicking and dragging on the corner. Oh, the music is really coming through loud. There we go. Let's turn it down just a little bit. Okay. We'll switch it over to a timeline. Where are you at? Bring it over to 0, and we'll go over to the position here, or the object data properties for the camera, or object properties, not object data, and keyframe all that, the position of it. Then we'll move it on the y-axis. So we get, oh, this always happens for some reason. It starts glitching out. There we go. So like we can look straight on at the chair, and we'll now keyframe that portion right there. So this is what we, oops, screwed up here. I'm gonna move all this towards the end, say like frame 200, and I want to move this back. Oop. There we go. And now keyframe at first. So if we run this real quick, this is basically what we're looking at for our animation. Real simple, but once the AI kicks in, it's gonna be some interesting results. So we'll save that and check in over here, still downloading some of the dependencies. So that's all right. We'll let that do the work it needs to. In the meantime, we could start prepping our prompt. So I'm gonna just do that on a little notepad here. And looking at this scene, I want to create a prompt and I want to create a negative prompt. So for our prompt, we're gonna do futuristic interior of a spaceship living room. We'll do, yeah, I'm already committed to all caps, whatever. We can add some specifics, so we can say maybe the painting on the wall, because that's really where I'm more concerned that we'll have some inconsistencies. So I could do painting of a green circle on a wall, round chair with velvet material. Let's see, what else could we do? We could add some neon LED lights. We can specify we want some cyan and blue, since I've done that before. It worked really well. Or cyan and pink, rather. We'll do raw photo, photo real, 8K. We can just copy some of those things that we had over here. So Sure, let's throw in some film grain. I've never quite tried that before. I'll probably add a good touch of realism. And I don't know, I'm gonna actually test out doing the raw photo part of the prompt in the beginning versus the end. Okay, and as for our negative prompt, we can also bring in some from the template. So yeah, this is more what we don't want, because this is very specific to people, but I don't need people. We don't want semi-realistic, we don't want CG, we don't want render, cartoon, anime, anything like that. Mutated fingers. So we'll copy this. It's funny, like adding in bad anatomy or wrong anatomy or poorly drawn as part of the negative prompt. It's like, please don't do bad stuff. please don't be wrong. In case you were thinking of doing that. Okay. And then all that, we need the actual plugin to be running now for us to be able to use. So we're still waiting on this thing. This is ridiculous. Perhaps. Well, what we can do, let's see what this looks like in Eevee. Because it'd be interesting to have a transition where we actually have the scene as it is right now, and we start the rotation with the scene as it is, and then we transition into the AI, right? So we kind of get both. We're able to experience both what the animation is intended to look like and with the AI sort of filter over it. Getting a whole lot of excessive bloom here with this setting. If I just turned off bloom, kind of looks better. We can punch up the threshold here. Decrease, I don't know, okay, radius. But definitely tweak on the intensity. Yeah, I'm not liking how Eevee looks. We'll keep it to cycles. Yeah. In any case, for the AI, we do need to run this in cycles. So we'll save this. I just realized there's nowhere really for light to come in through, so maybe we add that in. So we could add a area light. Move that up. Move it over. And then at the same time, we're gonna add in a rectangle or a mesh plane. Move that up. Make it like a bar. Move it over to the edge. And I could actually go into wireframe and top view in order to place this. It's nice that we had a little floor plan here. SX. Cool. Move that over. I was trying to get that in position. All right. If I now turn that into an emissive material, or we may get like a very light blue light. Turn that up. And put it almost flat with the roof. There we go. Okay, so the reason why I added an area light as well is because the emissive materials are usually pretty, I mean, they're yeah, they're pretty. They're okay in terms of like light accuracy, but they're not entirely accurate as to how light should behave, or it doesn't give you as much flexibility in how the light should look in the end, really. Using an area light to complement that emissive material can help with more realism. So we kind of tone down the emissive. We just we see that it's lit up, but we're actually not counting on the emissive object to light the scene. We're actually counting on the area light to control that. I put it in the wrong place. We go over here, RZ90, and then RX or RY, yeah, RY, and we can stretch that through towards the end. And move that higher as well. I made the light red for now, just so I can tell a little bit more where it's at and make sure it's in the right place. Okay. So now we can turn that light blue, just like the other one. I'll go back to my emissive material real quick, or emissive object. There you are. And we'll turn down this intensity to maybe like just 2. 1.5. Let's see. All right, and then now we have this area light. So if I turn off the area light, this is what we got. It's just a blue bar, right, of light. And as I turn up the intensity on the area light, it starts to look a bit better. So we can modify the size as well, but I won't. What we want to mess with is the spread. So we can make the light a bit more direct. We get harsher shadows, but really we want to find a sweet spot here, not fully ambient, but not fully direct either. Okay, I think that's good enough. And I'm actually going to turn it into, well, yeah, let's keep that light blue. Let's go back over to the chair and actually turn this one pink, since I'm adding that into the prompt. I spent quite a bit of time getting that orange right. Not so much, but I just mean in terms of streaming time. I'll just switch it to a nice soft and pastel pink. Yeah. Okay, neat. I think I will go to this painting as well. Head over to our shader editor. And of course, like the way that I'm approaching this to have the realistic vision model modify this image is really much more a matter of filling in the gaps. Like I don't want it to completely take over. I've just realized like the more work and the more specific you get in your 3D, and have that match what you're prompting, the better the outcomes, especially when it comes to animation. So we'll hit shader editor and we just want to add in here a hue saturation node so that if I tweak the hue right here, I can change the color of the whole thing. It's changing the color of the frame as well, but that's fine. Oh, I'm actually, there's many materials to this one. So I'm actually on the frame material. I imagine that this is the painting. Let's see if I unplug this, right. And there's actually already a hue saturation node here that is actually increasing the saturation and the brightness on that. Like if I change it to default, a lot darker and less saturated. Let's bring that back to where it was. And we'll change the hue. So here at 1 we have some blues. And right here we have some there we go. That's like a little dark purple with some blue. Yeah. That'll work. Okay. Where are we at with the other Blender instance? All right, we have realistic vision installed 1.4 on this instance of Blender. So we'll go ahead and save our file here, close it, and then we want to open it in this one. So we'll look for our new file. Where'd it go? Let's see, animation. There we are. I don't know why this is happening on Windows, where I'm adding the date as a name to every folder, but they don't always get in order, the date. I don't know what that is. It's like when I go from 9 to 10, I don't know if I have to put 09, or if I am putting 09, or if I don't have to do that. I don't know. Anywho. Okay, now we have our scene in here. We have all this running for us. I'm not sure what experimental features this render has. I'm hoping that doesn't interfere with the render. But we scroll down over here as usual. We have our dream textures option now showing up in our render panel. We want to use the stable diffusion pipeline, and here we could select a model. So we'll select realistic vision 1.4. Again, 2.0 is out. I don't know why it's not showing up for me. It showed up for me earlier today, but for whatever reason, we're using 1.4 this time. Hi there, EM. Catching the other on the chat. Always nice to have you drop in. Anybody wanting to add any suggestions or add questions into the chat, feel free. So I'll start off with what I was using earlier. So this is where these settings that come recommended for the model start to play in. So for noise, it recommends going between 0.25 and 0.45. I actually found that for me, we might tweak this, but 0.6 tends to be a better starting point, at least for how I'm setting these things up. And for input, we can't use depth here. We'll just stick to color. So this is now where we can paste in our prompt. So we did that work beforehand. You can paste in this prompt right here. And seamless axis, we want to turn that off. There is no seamlessness that we're looking for here. There's no material. And then we want to add in for our negative prompt what we talked about over here. We don't want it to look crappy, basically. We don't want it to look cartoony. Not just crappy, but not cartoony. All right. Very important here. We don't want a random seed. So this could actually take a little bit of testing, but you could just type in random numbers and just alter those random. I mean, if you just did a random seed, it'd be random anyway, right? So you might as well type in some random numbers, and we'll tweak those random numbers little by little, or until we get a result that we like, and we can stick to that seed, and that'll bring a lot of consistency through all our frames. Steps, I've found that 50 is a good number to go with here. And then CFG scale, this is really either 7 or 3, depending on how close the the way that it actually works on this particular scene goes. The scheduler, so that is something that's outlined here. Euler A or DPM 2am Keras with 25 steps. So yeah, it says 25 steps. I'm pushing it to 50. If it's too crazy, we'll bring it back down to 25. But I found that DPM Keras is working a little bit better for just how I like things. So we'll select that one. So we'll go DPM KDPM discrete. There it is. Speed optimization, so we can leave that alone. Half precision, what is that? I haven't seen that before. And if I hover over it, it doesn't tell me. That's fine. Maybe just turn that off. Okay. So with that, we can hit render image. Okay. So yeah, it starts out by rendering our scene as we have it. And then once that finishes up, we can take a look here. It says generating, and it'll have a progress bar here that gets updated for actually applying the AI over this output image. I've just realized I skipped a step, so we're actually not going to see the result of the AI right now, I don't believe. So I'm going to let it finish though, and then we'll check the result and apply it so that every time it outputs the image, we do override the current render with the AI render. So there we go. Hits 100. All right. Bit of a pause before it kicks in. And there we go. We can go over here and we can hit view layer, and we want to see the dream textures layer. Okay. Not a living room. It's actually a bedroom. Version 1.4 still holds up really, really well. Yeah, why did it do a bed? I did not want a bed. I wanted a living room with a chair. So maybe I just won't mention like any residential sort of space. Let's take that out of the prompt. So we scroll down. I was not expecting that like bubblegum type of a room, but you know, whatever. We'll run with it. Futuristic interior of a spaceship living room. Let's take away living room. Well, last I checked, there's no beds in living rooms. Or maybe, you know, actually there are, because a lot of us can only afford to live in studios nowadays, and our living room is our bedroom. So, okay. We took out a living room. Hopefully that fixes that. That was a funny result. I'm going to save that seed just because I found it hilarious. But we'll switch that number, see what other kind of results we could get with that prompt. So I'll just kind of get rid of these last 3 digits and type in another random 3 numbers. And the step that I skipped here was to go to compositing. And there's a bunch of stuff that's being done here to the image to make it look more photoreal, which is nice. What we'll do is wherever we're outputting our render image, I'm just going to replace that with the dream textures image. Bam. So we can now hit render once more. I'm actually going to bring up our timeline here and move the camera along so we render out a different view. Let's check that out. Render image. And over here, I'll set this to image editor just so we could see our previous render as we're rendering the current one. Awesome. Thanks, EM. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this today. It was interesting. I was working with an empty room, actually. It was an animation I meant to post, but I never got around to putting the frames together. But I did like a 200 frame animation of rotating through a living room, and it also added in a bed, even though I asked for a living room. And then what I found interesting was that the seed actually yielded consistent results for... This is really interesting, these results. But anyway, the one earlier today yielded consistent results for the bed sheets and like the things on top of the bed, more so than the actual size or shape of the bed. Yeah, our noise factor here is too high. It's like overriding way too much. But let's actually just change one value at a time. I'm gonna go over here to the dream textures again, and we'll first switch to the CFG scale. So right now it's at 7. So this is how strongly the prompt influences the image. 7 is pretty high. Let's just take that down to 3 and see what we get. See if it doesn't override our scene as much, because I'd rather not noisy up the image more. Because that's just a crappier way of getting more variation from what the AI does. Okay, giving that a second there. But I do like the seed a bit better than the one before. It's more, it's less bubblegummy. I see that the painting of a circle is taken very, very literally, and it almost looks like the light is being applied into this aspect of the painting. But it's alright, it looks like some weird, surreal type thing in the future that might be popular. Okay, mixing the chair with the painting there. So, yeah, whoa, that's interesting to look at. I'm gonna save this one. Yeah. And what I want to do here when I save this file is I want to use the seed number as the file name. That way I can always come back to that iteration, right? Save as image. I'll also save it in this little text file that I've composited for myself. Okay. I'm gonna also bring down the noise. I'll bring it down to 0.45 it was recommending. I do like that CFG scale better, the way it's modifying the image, and we'll just have the noise at 0.45. All right, now we need to create a folder here in our project so we can start outputting a whole bunch of frames. We'll kind of close out there. Just kind of look at the outputs here. So we'll save here. We will go into our output and we'll paste in our directory for where we want our frames to be saved. Accept. There was a setting here for rendering performance that can help us out a little bit, and that is persistent data. The tiling, we can just take it to 512. And if we go over to dream textures as well, I suppose I'll turn on that half precision thing again, so it goes a bit faster. And now instead of hitting render image, we're going to hit render animation, and it's going to start. It's going to go from that starting position that we set for the camera right there, and rotate around the chair. So we'll see here how we get from this view all around. All right. So with that, or as we run this, we kind of see what results we get. If you'd like to drop in any questions at this time in the chat or any suggestions, perhaps for future streams, we can use this AI tool, this stable diffusion within Blender, thanks to dream textures. We could use this for another type of scene, you know, maybe not an interior, maybe not something ArcViz related. Let's see what our first frame looks like. Okay. I think that's definitely in a better direction than all the other ones. I'm hoping that it's able to stay consistent on all these things. Obviously, the more variables we have over our image, the more inconsistent it'll be. I'm concerned that I continue to ask for a chair and it continues to throw in like a bed or a sofa, or in this case, a table with chairs. I'm not mad about the table with chairs in this case, only a little bit, because the legs are wireframe and it's having a lot of trouble doing those wireframe legs, and that's gonna stutter a lot in between frames, right? Like if I mean, it is consistent enough between one image and the next. Yeah, actually it's very consistent. Well, it's not going anywhere. It's not moving just yet. So we'll see around like frame 10 or 15 if it still maintains pretty consistent. I am going to keep this seed. It's different from the last one, right? I didn't change that. No, it's actually the same as the last one, but it's yielding really different results simply because I gave it less freedom to do other, you know, deviate too much from the image I'm giving it or from the scene I've set up. But it's actually a good thing. I'm also concerned with the wall. Yeah, the wall is going to change a lot. I'll continue exploring this, see how we can introduce more and more specificity or consistency throughout images. But the morph transition that can be done in between these images can really, you know, make for a really interesting video. I mean, all these videos or all these animations that you see people put out created by AI imagery, they kind of have that. Dream Textures is a great name because it really does have that dreaming quality, right? It's almost like the machine is dreaming up these images. And I don't know, sometimes I draw parallels to these these AI animations to actually dreaming. Let's see how long our renders are taking. So each one is going at about 30 seconds. It takes about 13 seconds to render the actual scene, and then it takes about another 17 seconds for the AI to kick in its filter. I talk about iterating on an idea, huh? It's getting more accurate with the legs, even though it does. I mean, there's not that much resolution there. It almost seems like there's they're embedded, they're melding into the floor. What I'm really surprised about this realistic vision model as well is not only how great it looks in terms of like photorealism or, you know, accuracy in terms of a camera or a photo, but it's the reflections. Like, we're getting on the floor, we're getting the reflection of the chair above, the chair that's not there, right? But it knows that there's a chair there, and so it's throwing in a reflection because we are getting reflections from the window, I guess, baked into the model. And it understands to do that. It's not doing that for all of them, but it's doing that where that matters, which is this sort of glossy line, where you'd have typically in a perspective like this, right? You have reflection generally all over the floor, but wherever you have the most light hitting that reflective surface, that's where you get your mirror, right? So it knows that, or it's trained to do that, which is very badass. And we can start to see here how this kind of plays as a stop motion animation. It did, yeah, it did something real funky over here with the legs. It kind of made them circular, and now this one's floating. So it's not a perfect process, not yet. I'm really curious how some of these people, I mean, I've seen people get, you know, or explain how they get consistent results. And I've seen people's videos using AI where they get extreme consistency, especially with like people or characters, where it looks exactly the same, like clothing, lighting style, skin tone, hair, eyes, all that on an actual video, like put over in a video. And I imagine that's like breaking down the video into frames and then putting all those frames through the same prompt with the same seed. And but how deep, or what are those really specific settings to get like such perfect consistency? It probably has also to do just with training your own model, right? So that's not highly complicated to do if you're already if you're already kind of diving into Stable Diffusion. But training your own model can also yield incredible consistency because you're sort of locked in to a set of images you're feeding it, right? So rather than having so much option, right, or so much freedom for it, not only are you limiting that freedom with your prompt or your settings, but the actual library it's drawing from itself is also very, very focused. And I'll be doing a future video with Leonardo AI because I already covered that initially, but it allows you to build your own models, which is really, really exciting because typically with building your own models, you have to add in your own metadata, meaning if you feed photos to build, you feed a lot of images to build your own Stable Diffusion model, you have to tag, you have to essentially make sure that all those photos have the data of what's in that photo so that it works with a prompt. And Leonardo AI, somehow they figured it out where you could just upload the images and they figure out what's in the image on their end, right? So it takes out that part of the work, which is fantastic. Okay, so we're at 14 frames. We're running for 200. You could expect to see this animation show up on my socials and here on the channel as a short. And yeah, we're gonna have a lot of dancing legs for these chairs. But hopefully the morph effect that I do as a transition between all these frames is gonna yield pretty smooth video. It'll still jitter and it'll still kind of, you'll see the almost look like the furniture and the room itself is alive. It'll have that effect, but it's part of what makes this like AR art appealing, or it gives it away as well, right? A lot as AI art. I feel like people are getting used to seeing that so much now. But all right, we're gonna let this run. I don't think it'll run overnight. We're getting about 30 seconds per frame, and we have about, yeah, it's gonna take a little around an hour and a half more to get the full camera rotation around the chair. So with that, I thank you for tuning in. This is something I've done on the channel before, but I just wanted to showcase this specific model called Realistic Vision. And again, Realistic Vision 2.0 is even better than 1.4. 1.4 does a fantastic job, as you can see, but 2.0 is even better. So highly suggest you check that out. Thanks for tuning in once more. We'll be back next week at the live stream. Might drop in here and there between now and then with some updates. But stay tuned. You can always hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you know when I'm streaming. And as always, stay creative, stay testing. Have a great night, good evening. Cheers to chat. I'll see you on the next one.